We do have the 4 for a quorum, and Don Lord would serve on as the 5th as the alternate. So if you're ready to start, we can at least take roll and get to Ms. Shear's report.
Very good. With that, then I would call this meeting of the Rental Housing Advisory Board to order. I'm just going to do a quick rundown of meeting etiquette since this is our first totally virtual meeting. So please limit the background and activity noise as much as possible. Mute yourself when you're not speaking, and make sure to unmute yourself when you are trying to speak. No side conversations should be held in the chat box, only official meeting business. And please identify yourself by name prior to speaking. So with that, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes, this is Alan Lewis. Katrina DeGroot. Lindsay Erickson.
Here.
Timothy Ernst.
Tim is here.
Danny Garcia. Alec Gulan. Mr. Gulan, I see your name, but I didn't.
I'm here, sorry.
All right.
It wasn't letting me unmute.
Very good. Todd Hutchison. Linda Javaltis.
I'm here.
Excellent. And Don Lord. Can you unmute? I see his name, but I haven't heard him yet. And Agnes Payne. Well, Mr. Chairman, we have 4 for a quorum, for sure.
All right, thank you, everyone. There are no citizens in our virtual room for statements. Were there any written comments or public statements sent to the city?
None.
With that, then we'll move on to item D on the agenda, approval of minutes from our August 12th, 2020 meeting.
I move to approve the meeting minutes. It's Linda.
Second from Lindsay.
Thank you to both of you.
Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes from the August 12th meeting as written. How do we do a vote in this round?
We usually get a yes. They have to unmute to say yes, or give us a thumbs up signal. That's what I've used.
That works.
Yes.
Works for me. I approve.
Very good. Motion passed.
Oh, okay. Very good. Then thank you. We'll move on to item E of the agenda, a discussion regarding the Wisconsin Rental Assistance Program with Lou Shear from Advocap. Ms. Shear.
Good afternoon, everyone. We did have an extraction every Wednesday, so the numbers I have are from last Wednesday. We have spent $1,142,247 helping 683 separate different households. That breaks down to 688,254 in the Winnebago County for 396 households. Looking at the numbers for tonight's extraction, we have about $83,000, which leaves us with a balance of just a little bit over $100,000 at this time. The good news, or the additional news, is Governor Evers has approved another $5 million for the purposes of using RAP, and it extended the period of time until November 25th. We are asking for additional funds because we're spending somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 each week. However, we probably will make a cutoff date as of November 9th because it takes time to get all the paperwork in. So we will cut off the wait list at that time. We're pretty much up to date. People are not waiting for a phone call more than 2 days, so the wait list has been going very well, yet we're still getting consistent calls. A lot of it has to do, or the more dire straits people have to do with the fact that they have yet to receive their unemployment. We can pay December rent also, so we feel that we're going to be able to help the households, as many households as we can until the end of December, which is also the end of the eviction moratorium. So, we're working on some ideas about second projects or second ideas for helping people beyond the end of the year. But right now, I think we're going to be asking somewhere between $150,000 and $250,000 extra for the communities that we're serving. What can I answer for you folks?
Hi, it's Linda. So there's hardly any people on the wait list right now?
Correct. I should say we're working on people. What happens is we get them on the wait list, we send them paperwork, and they kind of go into a hold mode. Each of my staff has at least 10 people in that hold mode, and I have 12 people working on this program right now. As far as the wait list goes, we're not waiting a long. People are not waiting weeks to get their answers now. They're waiting hours, theoretically.
Thank you.
Sure. They are now also applying for the new energy as service or energy services dollars, so that they're now applying for the new heating system season, I should say. And additional CARES money also went into that program.
Could you just repeat of the, I think you said $5 million that was just announced from the governor, how much AdvoCap is receiving?
We have to request it.
Oh,
And
okay.
we believe that we're going to request somewhere between 100 and 250,000. We're just trying to decide this extraction tonight and looking at the list. I don't want to hold money we're not spending. There are some counties that are finding it very difficult to spend this money. There are other counties that are spending it before they even have it. So we're trying to be conservative and yet progress in our numbers.
This is Tim. Given the available balance, how many more households is the AdvoCap able to service?
After tonight's extraction, we believe we have about $120,000. That's about a week to a week and a half of extraction. That's the rate we're going right now. And with allowing up to December rents already, people who are finding themselves, like I said, in dire straits, we're able to prepay rent. We're still finding some landlords who are saying, "Hey, my tenant said they're working with you. Are they?" Some are, some aren't. We're also finding some landlords who are just choosing still to evict rather than hold on there. And I'm sure that there's more issues than non-payment of rent in those situations.
So maybe this is Linda. So maybe this has been answered previously, but it just crossed my mind. So you're helping several renters, and that's really great. You're doing the same for people who have to pay their mortgage?
This money can only be used for rental assistance. We have not been assisting anyone with mortgages.
Okay,
I do want to mention that we've paid over 100 people. We've paid the maximum amount of $3,000 already, and that's not going to change with this additional money.
okay. So have you heard, heard any problems out there in the community in that regard, with regard to mortgages? Have you gotten calls with that concern?
A few calls, and I know the county is operating a program. I'm not sure how many calls they're getting. I know some people who are operating this are saying there's not a lot of demand A lot of local banks are in fact working with people and doing loan modifications if you were a strong person with them before. But we've also heard that some of the banks are doing a modification with a 6-month balloon, meaning they'll, require you to pay that in full in 6 months. That's a hardship for a lot of people. If I didn't have the money the first 4 months, I'm hardly going to have the money, in 6 months. But right now, we're looking towards next year and what funding is available and what the needs are. We're always trying to do some kind of look at the gaps in the community. So,
Thank you.
Lindsay, are you hearing anything about mortgages?
No, and that's so the county's assistance for mortgages, that's through Human Services. And I just jumped on the website and it looks at like their deadline for accepting applications is the 15th, which is tomorrow. So I haven't heard if they're extending that or how that program has been going, but that has been available since September 1st.
Okay. There's just so many questions with that. Are people handling mortgages with escrow accounts? Are they paying, the taxes with that? Are they not? We don't know how to set that up. I think they had a $2,000 maximum. I don't know if that's enough or a lot or not enough, or I have no idea. I'll be curious what their reports are when it's finished.
This is Alan Davis. Last time you were able to tell us how many City of Oshkosh tenants were included in your list. Do you have
I'm sorry, I did not break it down that tight this time. The percentages are staying almost exactly the same, which I find interesting. So I did not extract it down that far. I just know 396 are from Winnebago County. The next closest is Falmouth County at 222.
Thank you.
Yep.
This is Tim. In the case that you mentioned that there are still some tenants that are like being evicted despite applying for having applied for the program, the landlords are refusing the money. Is that what's happening?
Yes, because part of the condition is that they will remain renting to people and working with them upon this payment. Although we've had some people that we paid 3 months rent early on, and now they're being evicted and asking for down payment assistance and first month's rent, we still have to stick with the $3,000 maximum assistance to any household. So that's not helping some of the people.
Tim, again, can you speak maybe, I don't know if you can necessarily, but can you speak maybe to how these evictions interact with the CDC moratorium? I mean, if there's people have applied for the program, that would mean they are facing COVID burden, probably, right? So, can you fill us in on any of that element of the picture?
I'm really not as sure. I know that some of the judges are actually providing the paperwork at their hearings or asking the questions. So some judges are being proactive in regards to trying to help the tenants. I know legal action is certainly the first place I refer people to in case there's any, they're saying, hey, he's not going to accept this money. We're going to be evicted anyway. And I'm sure they're working with those, but I'm not getting numbers. See, I haven't been able to make the Tuesday meetings. I know the last one was canceled. I don't know if this has been brought up or not. I keep pointing to you for all of my answers today.
That's okay. No, I sent an email to Jacqueline from Legal Action. I haven't gotten a response. I'm sure they're swamped right now. So I don't really know the numbers either of how many have been able to utilize the new moratorium. But I do know, like the housing authority, they've been able to provide the form to tenants. They created their own form that works for them. So I'm hopeful it's being utilized. I know there's a lot of confusion though of, at what point in the process can they sign the form? How does that work? So.
Here's a question from the chat. I'll repeat it just so everybody can hear it. I'm sure Mr. Lord's microphone is working properly. So his question from the chat was, how many landlords are turning down the funding and why?
We don't always get an answer as to why, as much as they say they would just like to proceed with the eviction. It's a small number, but it's a consistent thing daily with each person. They're getting one or two that are halfway through the paperwork and saying the landlord won't fill out the paperwork, or we're calling to find out the status of it. I think, like I said, I think there must be other behaviors besides non-payment of rent. We know that that's always a concern. I know as a landlord, I'm even looking to evict someone at this time. We had a non-renewal of lease for a period of time, and now they're just staying, saying I can't evict them. So yeah, it's everybody's, it's all over the map as to why people are not utilizing the funds or allowing the funds. I was at a local landlord association meeting in Fond du Lac County. I know they're not happy with this at all. In the CDC rules, they're not very happy in regards to that, and they were looking at ways that they could stop or evict people and not use money as the reason. And I try to encourage them to work with their tenants, and some people obviously are always willing to work with tenants, some are not.
And the CDC eviction moratorium still allows landlords to evict for other reasons other than non-payment of rent.
Yes.
So there's a lot of behaviors that this could be a result of.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for Ms. Shear this afternoon? All right, seeing none. Mr. Lord says in the chat there are 4 conditions that must be met to evict. Like, I assume that means for the CDC to meet the CDC moratorium or the exceptions on the moratorium. Ms. Shear, thank you. We would we will hear from you again in the future, I hope.
Thank you.
We will move on then to item F, discussion of the affordable housing workshop from a couple of weeks ago.
If I could chime in, Mr. Chairman, the Rental Housing Advisory Board should have received copies of the PowerPoints in your packet. And the workshop with the council and the Rental Housing Advisory Board was invited to that. I thought the presentations were very interesting. We can go over those workshop slides, but certainly the direction from council was to follow staff's recommendation to begin a housing study for the city of Oshkosh. That would include extremely low and very low income households, which the consultant pointed out we do not have enough units to serve, as well as the upper income units that the consultant says the city of Oshkosh does not supply in adequate numbers. So staff has been working over the last week to put together a request for qualifications to send that out to a large number of consulting firms that do this type of work. We'll be issuing that in the very near future and would expect to get some kind of proposal back in front of council by the end of the year so that they can start work sometime this winter and get this done in the spring or early summer of 2021. Number one, we'll want to see what kind of results can the city do, what can the city do to work with our partners to encourage more housing on both ends of the spectrum, the extremely low and very low, as well as the upper income I'd characterize. So that would be touching on rental housing advisory board, I think a little bit in that your rental housing actually touches all points of the spectrum as well for income. So there's going to be extremely low and very low income renters, as well as, I guess, the upper end. We don't have all that many upper end units for rent in the city. And reading the local newspapers, we certainly see that being developed in Neenah and Menasha and Appleton and De Pere and Green Bay. We haven't seen that much in Oshkosh, and we want to find out what needs to be done so we can continue with our policy of providing housing options for everyone on the income spectrum. And I'd be happy to answer any questions for the follow-up.
It's Linda. I'm not sure if I gleaned this correctly when I was at the presentation. But it sounded like there were several things that the city would need to do, like check out financing. There were like this list of things, and I couldn't see the PowerPoint and I didn't have a copy with me at the time. And so my suggestion would be that the problem is like right now, it was yesterday, it was like 2 years ago, the issue with regard to finding housing in Oshkosh. So it was my thinking that the city could actually take some steps toward financing or other things, explore some of those things before they get the recommendation back. They seem to be two separate things. That some things could be explored before we get the results, so that now we're not waiting like another 6 months to explore this issue. Do you kind of get what I'm trying to say?
Yes, we have existing programs that extremely low and very low income renters and owners can qualify for. Unfortunately, there's a screening process, I would describe it, as to who qualifies for that. Sometimes the landlord has to be willing to rent to them. Sometimes they have to have a good credit history and background check. And sometimes not everybody can qualify for the existing programs. I'm not sure I can promise that we could change any of that because we are using city funds and public funds. Oftentimes this comes from block grant, which means it's federal funds, and I can't cut the strings on the federal requirements for programs. Certainly we encourage the use for extremely low and very low, and we get those, but we also spend money in just the low and moderate income category. So I'm not sure I can just tailor it just to the extremely low or very low, because I'm not sure we'd actually be able to spend all the money that we're getting right now to spend on their particular housing. The other corollary to that is that we always expect the money to be repaid. We have almost no grant programs. These are all loan programs, and most people are interested in grants and not loans.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that's what I was getting at, and I probably need to be more clear, but there just seemed to be some things that seemed necessary to do once the project, investigative project is complete. And anyway, there just seemed to me there were some things the city could explore and do and make decisions on before they got the result of that report. So maybe I'm not being specific enough, or
yeah, if you maybe offline we could go over the details of what the consultant back to the rental housing advisory board as to if there's anything we could do in the next month or two to expand that type of service to extremely low and very low.
Okay, there was a gentleman that spoke as part of the PowerPoint presentation. I don't know, I have to look at it. When I printed it out, it didn't print out properly for me. It was like printed really big and I couldn't get it to print out properly for me. But anyways, my suggestion is if the city can do anything at all possible before the report comes out, that would be good if they did that now. And I don't mean like, okay, get people lined up or renters lined up or things like that. It didn't have to do with that. It had to do with administrative things that had to be in place even before renters were even looked at. Just anyway, that was just my suggestion to start on it as soon as possible, because it's been a problem for a long time.
Yes, and I'd be happy to include this on the next agenda so we can touch bases, and staff and I will review what we're doing right now, and if there's anything that we can do in the short term, we can highlight that to the board at your next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there any other discussion or questions on the content from the meeting?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think we really have to look at the changing demographics of renters. I think not that many years ago, we thought that renters were all young people. And now you're seeing quite a bit of older people, particularly living alone. And I think we have to address those changing demographics of the renter. And then also it seems to be the larger units and the smaller units, but not so much the 2 bedrooms that are the ones that are having a shortage.
Yes, it's Lindsay. I would agree. And just to add in units that are accessible for people with disabilities. I've been hearing a lot about that too.
Yes, demographics and accessibility are 2 points that we've included in that request or scope.
Yeah, this is Tim. I was going to say on the the last page of the slideshow, there's the additional options. And I was just going to say, I think all of those are probably worth exploring if they can just be included into the scope of the study at no extra cost. I think because we've been brought, especially ADA accessibility issues in the past, I think that's something important or of special importance to focus on. And I think focusing on the elderly as a changing demographic would help give us some, potential to work with like the council on, the council on aging in town here too. So more cooperation in order to achieve better results. Any other questions or discussion on the meeting content? I think it's definitely something worthwhile and something that ought to be explored. If council is looking for our feedback, that's what I would say. All right. That brings us to item G on the agenda, the Tenant Bill of Rights discussion. And I sent out a draft of what I've worked on. It appears in the packet immediately after the slideshow, pages 25 to 26 by my reckoning. And I thought I would just start by kind of explaining some of the reasoning here, and then open it up for like questions and discussion. In other communities around the other communities in the U.S. have taken the initiative to pass what is called a tenant bill of rights. This doesn't have the force of law because all of the things that it calls for are already in the law. Rather, this is just sort of a resolution, a statement by the city that indeed tenants have rights, that the laws exist to help protect those rights, and that equitable treatment for tenants is not only expected, but required in many instances by the law. So to this end, the top of the document identifies a few of the problems that exist in the community with imbalance in landlord-tenant power. A lot of those are further explained and justified via that affordable housing workshop we just had. The rest then is, I guess, the guts of it, if you will. Modeling after some of the work these other communities have done, have broken tenant rights into kind of three key areas: right to justice and fair and equitable treatment under the law, right to peaceful enjoyment of the dwelling, and finally, right to health and safety. I don't speak legalese, much less write it very well. So, of course, language is up to, can be changed and things like that. But then under each area, I identify some of the more common like areas of concern, along with state statutes which help to justify the assertions therein. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those, or suggestions, other additions, anything you'd like to discuss. I would also add that this has been on the our strategic plan for a few iterations of it now, so it would be nice to get that taken care of also.
It's Linda. I think it would be, I mean, I really like your idea. I think it's really wise to have it in language that can be easily understood, like sixth grade education, as opposed to legalese, because if people don't understand what's written there, it's going to be useless.
Thank you, Linda. This is Tim. Thank you, Linda. I guess I would also add that I brought the idea up to Mr. Roloff a while ago, and he seemed on board in as much as like a resolution would have, and he thinks a resolution of this type would have like a meaningful effect. At least that's the impression I got from him. I'm not trying to put words into his mouth, of course.
This is Lindsay. I agree. I think I'm on board with something like this. I'm curious, Tim, if you have thoughts or what you would hope to see as an effect of this, or if there's any like follow-up policies or what could come out of this that might be kind of more impactful.
Sure. I think in terms of policy, follow-up policy, I don't really have any specific ideas at this juncture. The way state law is crafted, of course, makes it difficult for us, much less the city, to do certain things. In terms of what I would hope to see, I mean, I think it's important that the city stand with vulnerable people against powerful interests who are misrepresenting their rights to them. And we have this board has evidence that those types of things happen, and they happen again and again and again. My hope would be that by seeing this, tenants feel less afraid of engaging the city, and more willing to engage with their landlords, to have frank and open lines of communication instead of relying on assumptions or fears or threats or whatever, things that aren't productive for any party involved. I would also like to see tenants begin to organize in this community. I don't know to what extent this bill or this Bill of Rights would help achieve that directly, although the right to organize is specifically listed in there. I do think it's important.
This is Lindsay again. Just wondering, I don't know if this would be the place for this, but if it would be useful to include some resources for tenants, whether it be, legal action or other groups, if they see this, if this is passed as a resolution and they identify with this, okay, then what, where can they go if they are experiencing any of these things?
Sure, and I'm not exactly, like I said, I don't legally, so I'm not like 100% clear on what, if that type of language would go in here. I think, assuming those resources still exist, like when it gets in front of council or whatever, I think that would be that's definitely something that could probably be added to. Yeah, I think that type of language would have a place in here somewhere. And
Well, we've got that, oh, excuse me, it's Linda. We've got that brochure that has all those resources on that brochure. So somehow that could get connected or referred to the website that we have. I haven't been on that website for a little bit, but I think the last time I looked, that brochure was on there. So we can make a referral to that.
This is Tim. Yeah, I think we can. I think it just makes sense to add somewhere that there are community resources like available to tenants, and then we can list several examples, starting with some of probably the more financially oriented ones, right? Like AdvoCap and then the legal stuff like legal action before kind of trickling down to us. I think that would make sense. I'd be happy to add that in somewhere. This is Tim again. My next, the ideal action, or the next step after we would, I can make an amended version for us to discuss at our next meeting, but the goal after that then would be to
Jim? I'd like to add something. I think some of the issues we have, like you said, get repeated over and over and over again. And I think if we had just a list of the 10 and 12 most common issues and how to go about solving it, that would be go a long ways and be pretty simple to do.
Don, this is Lindsay. Do you mean like the most common issues that renters or tenants would kind of run into, or from the landlord side?
Well, both sides.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest issues are what's deducted from a security deposit, and just simple things like the rules to enter an apartment to make a repair, what proper notice is. Some of those things, if we get them at once, really long amounts of documents, they don't get read. So if we get something that has a really and concise for most of the issues, I think that would be a good thing.
It's Linda. I'd like to say something. I think that's a good idea, Don. But however, we're talking about helping renters feel more power, and which I think is really important. So those other things like problems renters have, like the details of that. I mean, we've got the inspection piece, and they can find out on our website all the things that are inspection department looks at. But I think what we're talking about is helping renters feel less powerless in their situations with their landlords. So I think we might be talking about apples and oranges, I'm thinking.
I'm afraid we might have lost Mr. Ernst. Hopefully he's dialing in again.
Did people hear what I just said, or were we stuck, sort of?
Yes, I heard you.
Okay.
One of the things, Linda, is so many times when you have a lot of paperwork and things like that, no one reads it until there is an issue. And it gets hard to get people to do that. And that's why I said if we had something, a simple 5-minute read of the most common issues to be aware of, that's what I was going. It wasn't going to be something that was all a comprehensive thing, but just to try to take care of the majority of the issues and educate people.
This is Lindsay. I wonder if would that be something, and maybe this already exists, but could that live on, like this, the city's website under, rental housing or rental complaints and inspections? I don't, thinking about like, okay, where would tenants think to go to find that information? I don't know if that's the place they would go, but that could live somewhere.
This is Alan talking. We could certainly put it on the city's website, and I know we have a fair housing section, and we also have the rental inspection section, and there could be a range of places we could link that type of thing.
One point, I attended a seminar. It was something like the 10 biggest mistakes landlords make. And this would be, or they could have one, the 10 biggest mistakes tenants make too. Something that covered the majority of the things very simply and concisely. That's what I was speaking of.
And I wasn't sure if everybody saw the comment from Lou Shear. You may want to include rent smart information.
This is Tim. Sorry, my devices went AWire, so I missed some things. Can someone catch me up quick?
Let's see. Mr. Lord was talking about a 10-point list as to what landlords and tenants can do to help each other, I guess, if I was going to characterize it. And then Ms. Erickson asked where we could post something like this, assuming it got approved by council. And there's a range of sites on the city's website, from fair housing to our rental inspection to our general information pages. So I think there's multiple places we could put this on the city website.
All right, this is Tim. Yeah, I can. I will add Rent Smart to the list of resources in the one amendment, or in that amendment. I can't think off the top of my head of the 10 things that landlords and tenants should be working on or working with each other on together. So if Mr. Lord wants to draft that for next time, we can discuss it as a potential addition. Was that the idea?
Well, I don't know what that 10 would actually consist of, but one of the biggest thing is security deposits. And when I ask renters what they know about the notice to enter an apartment to make a repair, I hear all sorts of answers, and the answer is 12 hours. And I just think there's some common misunderstandings that could be cleared up somehow if we did some simple vehicle to do that.
And this is Lindsay. I was just looking on UWO's website. They do have a section on off-campus housing, and it looks like they have something similar maybe to what you're talking about, John. They have it's called Renters Need to Know document that gives some tips for off-campus students. What security deposits mean, renters insurance, all of that. So, I mean, we could look at that example and take some pieces from that.
I think it is important to just list resources where people can go without us having to recreate the wheel. I think a lot of people just don't know the resources that are out there, and I wasn't aware of that page. So if you could even send me that link by email, I'd appreciate it, or tell me where I can find it.
Sure, I can email it out.
This is Tim. Mr. Lord, what do you mean by recreation of the wheel in this instance? I mean, even some of the example you provided about security deposits and entry is like covered in the document I created, right? Like, I guess why is a list preferable than my idea in this case? Should I repeat that or So I'll repeat the question. I guess why the document is provided, I think, can be amended to include several resources, but even some of the specific, like the two specific things you mentioned about security deposit expectations and entry are listed in this document. I guess my question is, why do you view that as being, or why is that recreating the wheel, and why is that bad in this case?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I understand what you're saying, but there still seems to be a lot of misunderstandings out there, and misinformation. I know there's a lot of places to get that information, but there still seems to be a lot of common misunderstandings.
This is Tim. I would totally agree. That's part of the reason why I proposed the document the way it is.
I agree with, it's Linda. I agree with Tim in that, like I said earlier, the purpose of the Bill of Rights is not about making sure people have resources. Again, it's about empowering renters so that they feel they can call the city or they can search for resources. I mean, to offer a Bill of Rights for renters, I think, is a powerful thing in and of itself. Because people aren't even going to seek out resources if they're afraid to. So you can have 100 billion resources out there, but if somebody's afraid to move with regard to their landlord or rent or whatever, it doesn't matter how many resources are out there, they aren't going to move toward them. So that's my opinion.
This is Lindsay. I agree. I think this is a good first step that we can take.
If there's no, this is Tim. If there's no further, like I said, I'm happy to answer questions, or if there's content which folks feel should be removed or amended further, you can let me know or let us know now. Otherwise, I will draft an amendment that we can about with the listed resources as we discussed that I can include in the agenda for our next meeting, if that works for everyone.
Sounds good from Linda.
Yep, sounds good. It's Lindsay.
All right, then I think we can move on to, I don't have the agenda in front of me anymore, but I think the last item is the strategic plan updates.
That is correct. Everybody should have received a copy of the 2019 plan in their packets.
This is Tim. One thing I noticed right away is that we can eliminate the vacant building registry items because we did that.
Yes, and just to give you a quick update, staff plans to begin the implementation of that January 1 of 2021.
Excellent. In general, after my review, there's I think most of the items can still are still viable, workable, actionable. Some need to be, I think, updated to recognize like the COVID crisis and how that really meaningfully affects a lot of what we're doing here. That would be my one general suggestion.
This is Lindsay. Yeah, I agree. I think all of these, it seems like we can still make some progress on, and maybe adding, if it's just like monitoring or something, the need for, or any continued need for rental assistance because of COVID. Not sure what action that could look like yet, but might be something good for us to keep an eye on.
This is Tim. I agree.
And we possibly might want to add that we'll stay abreast of what's going on with the city in terms of available housing.
This is Tim. Linda, I think that's a good idea, especially given what Mr. Davis said earlier, that we are, our work is very much involved with or touches on the goals of the affordable housing study and its like potential outcomes. One other specific change is on the top or the first page under the advise column. It says the first item is attend 12 meetings per year. We've changed that to 6. So that should probably be updated. We've created the rental inspection districts as well. So I think we can eliminate that one.
I will chime in saying I think even the 5th bullet point, report to council on a regular basis, with the council giving all the board and commission representatives on council an opportunity to update the council monthly.
I would think that is a fine idea. And I think the idea of adding monitoring of COVID-related issues and affordable house, or monitoring of COVID-related materials could probably be added under like education, because we haven't really dealt with rent abatement. I don't know if we have plans to necessarily. So that one can probably be swapped out in favor of like rent assistance and rental assistance literature, as Lindsay was suggesting, I think.
And just to follow up on the comment made regarding the housing study, I fully anticipate staff will be suggesting the consultants interview or give you all an opportunity to be interviewed by the consultant who is working on the housing study this winter and spring. So I think we should have that on the list because I expect a lot of participation from the board.
Absolutely. I would agree. I would also add that under training programs, Rent Smart 2019 should just be updated to the current year, or probably next year, or just we intend to, support their mission given, or as long as feasible, given the constraints put on by the pandemic and so forth.
This is Lindsay, and yeah, I agree. I think we can just take the year off of it. It sounds like Rent Smart's going with their new virtual option. They've had a lot of participation from Winnebago County tenants. So
Good, glad to hear. Does anyone else have specific changes, additions, pet projects they want added?
Unmute. It's Linda. So I have not looked at our website, probably because there's just been so many other things to think about. I will take a look at that to see if that's up to date and if we have things that we want to post on there. So anyway, I'll do that.
this is Lindsay. Yeah, thanks for doing that. I think keeping an eye out for, if things are user friendly and accessible. I know, for me, at least just looking on the website, sometimes it seems like there's a lot of different things in different places. So making it easier for folks who are trying to find information.
Right. And I'm not very computer literate, to be honest. I'm so old school. So if it's not easy for me, it's not easy for somebody like me or, so I'll go on there and just see how it's looking and see if we need to add something or take something off or change something. We haven't addressed that for a while.
Yep, I think so. Something along the lines of proper monitoring and updating of our online resources and online communication with the community. That makes sense to me. All right. If there's no other additions or changes to the strategic plan, I don't know, would the next step be to vote on a updated version next time, or can we agree to pursue this plan as we've discussed it today? I don't remember exactly how we've done it in the past.
if this is Alan, I'd suggest we actually reduce all these to writing so we could send that out and get it adopted in December. So you have all of 2021, I guess, because I hate for us to put anything down and get it wrong.
Yes, and I know the board or the council likes to review that from time to time.
Good point. I believe the council members in the past have forwarded that to the council.
I'm sorry, this is Tim. I missed I missed that last part. So we're forwarding what to the council?
Forwarded the action plan.
Oh, yes. But after we're updating it.
After you've updated it and reviewed it in the final form before it gets sent on. And I guess I'd suggest you do that just because I like to make sure that as recording secretary, I can get some things right, but not everything. And I just soon get your eyes on it one time before it goes to council.
Absolutely. This is, yeah, excuse me. Thank you. Absolutely. So we can plan on reviewing it and voting or just reviewing and
Yep.
taking action at our next meeting.
That would be my recommendation, yes.
I think that is a fine recommendation. Any other questions, discussion on the plan? Then we will take action next at our next meeting after taking time to review.
And I'll make sure both those items are for action items at the December meeting. The strategic plan as well as the tenant bill of rights.
All right, excellent. Again, don't have the agenda in front of me, but I don't. Is that the last option or the last item?
That was the last item.
All right. On a personal note, then I'll just continue to encourage everyone to take the necessary precautions pertaining to COVID-19 during this time. Social distancing, proper mask wearing, hand washing, and be responsible for yourselves and for each other, please. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Lindsay.
I second, Linda.
Put it to a vote then.
Yes.
Aye, yes.
I vote aye. Tim votes aye.
Motion carried.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.